Welcome to Different Gravy, not just another Sheffield Wednesday podcast. I'm one of the hosts, Richard Miller, and my pal in Calgs, Dr. Luke Gledall, is my co-host for this episode and every other episode. How are you doing today, Luke?
I'm good. How about yourself?
Yeah, not too bad at all. It's a bit of a different experience again today. We've recorded immediately after games. We've recorded the day after games. This is sort of later on towards the evening of the match on Saturday. So, you know, it's nice to mix things up. It's nice to get some of those different experiences in. Yeah, so you're well. You're feeling good about things. there's a spring to your step.
Yeah, all right. I had a really funny kind of moment which I thought I'd share with you and the podcast listeners as well. So a friend of mine, Daz, who I grew up with in Sheffield, and then he moved down to London for a few years. And we also went down and had a few times as well, seeing a few Wednesday away games in down in the Big Smoke in the League One days. And, before I kind of left for Canada. And then he kind of packed up his stuff and went back to Sheffield, basically.
Okay.
And yesterday I saw a tweet from him, which was a picture of a London Bridge. And I didn't know what was going on, so I just sent him a text asking if he was down south. But actually, no, it was just his friend Dan, who still lives down there, sending him something. And him sharing it on media. So I thought he was down in London to watch the Wednesday game. And I was completely unawares of the complete news. So Luke Gledall, one of the co-hosts of Different Gravy, is late and misguided, much like Joey Pelopessi, and alongside my co-host, who is the Bannon to my Pelopessi, that's Richard Miller, because he is Scottish.
Oh dear, yes. To be honest, I've just twigged on the significance of the particular image now. That's quite a thing to walk into.
Yeah, I was like, I think I misunderstood your text. And then we talked a little bit about that. He was, I guess, sharing it because it was maybe trying to just get ahead of the media, which I think a few people did on the socials. Yeah. And then we talked about talked about the game, which we'll get on to.
Yeah. So, the first thing to deal with really is
breaking hoo-hoos.
Breaking hoo-hoos. There's a few things this week.
Yeah. So I guess. Well, we're looking back at the midweek game, the game against Birmingham.
Yep. There was also the. So I think chronologically, I think the game against Birmingham is probably kind of first and foremost. There was also the weird. Did you manage to see the Sky sort of teammates video of?
I did. Yes, the future Morecambe and Wise. That seems to be Bannon and Fletcher. Yeah, with the kind of maybe interesting at times, but uninspiring kind of banter back and forth. I did see that, actually. I know you texted me, and I did see it prior to when you sent it over to me. I'm also wondering, from a little bit of perspective with looking into that video, with how much did they actually kind of just, kind of maybe talk down some of their colleagues?
Well, there was a couple of intriguing bits. Sammy Winnall, they said, loves an L.
Yeah.
They said Adebayo was a dreamer, and that felt like that was code for something. He's a dreamer, but not. Yeah. And then I think probably most interesting of all was Tom Lees. He said, loves LA, but not who you're thinking of. So you're just thinking, who should he be thinking of? Who would be? It was just an enjoyable little insight. They used the nickname Big Dave, even though they know they weren't supposed to. So that sort of made them both giggle like little schoolboys.
Yeah.
They had a little look around to make sure Atty wasn't in earshot. But then also, so Bannon's been fairly prolific in all things. Prior to the match, we also had his comments about Forestieri and maybe how hard he's training in the week. And maybe that's behind the fact he doesn't get to start many games. Which was pretty forthright. Don't normally hear players talking about each other in such terms. And then it was interesting that happened prior to Forestieri actually starting the match today. So who knows? So those were a couple of bits. But the other thing that happened in the week obviously was the game against Birmingham. Do you want to summarise your thoughts?
It was Yeah, I don't know. It was just fairly kind of midweek Wednesday, really.
Yeah, I thought Reach in particular was very poor, and I think the other note that I made at the time was I don't think I'd ever seen Fletcher look quite so unthreatening as he did. Like he just didn't carry any goal threat at all. It was almost like he was purposefully making runs and touches that took him away from goal scoring opportunities, which was very frustrating, seeing as he was really our only sort of front man, the only attacking outlet really for most of that match. So that was a bit disappointing. Obviously, the result was disappointing, and the goal we gave away was pretty tame. Handing away possession under no pressure and then never getting the shape back and therefore conceding is pretty dire stuff, really.
Yeah, and then the kind of scramble at the end for us to try and get the winner just fell a bit too much, too little, too late, basically.
But it was really another case of same old, same old. Like, we'd probably been the better team, probably had the better chances, but lo and behold, were feeling a bit lucky to come away with the draw at the end of it. The sort of positive aspects to take away from the game, I thought that Harris, in the other positions he popped up in, he was moved across to the right, but it also felt at times like he was in a free role, and he just looked dangerous wherever he popped up across that front line. So that was a nice thing to see, and obviously got his goal, which is very good. His first in a while. And then Iorfa had a tremendous game, really.
Yeah, I agree with you. But when does he not have a great game these days? It's pretty standard, right?
But this was like, he's getting better and better. He's getting more confident in that centre-back role. He's, you just saw him, he's becoming more commanding. He feels like he's sort of more in charge of his physical gifts as the weeks go by. There was a couple of times, there was one point where he was heavily involved with us scoring the goal and had several kind of rangy runs forward. And there was one bit where he just sort of plucked the ball out of the sky from, I think, a goalkeeper's kick out from the opposition goalkeeper. So the ball had travelled, 2/3 of the pitch, and he just stopped it dead with one touch and then bounded forward with it. And it was just really a sight to behold. And I mean, he seems to be going from strength to strength to the point where he's the sort of guy you'd start to worry. People, really, scouts from the better teams in our division and some of I'd say probably about half the Premier League should probably be keeping an eye on Dominic Iorfa at this point in time, because what's not to like about the sort of performances that guy's putting in? On Wednesday night, he was very much a kind of diamond in the shining out from a pretty rough performance, all told. But once again today, he looked fantastic. So we came out with a 1-1 draw against Birmingham, probably again sort of licking our wounds and feeling we probably deserved a little bit better. There was the heightened tension of that game because Monk came out. The relationship that failed at the centre of that Birmingham management team between him and Pep Clotet, that sort of meant there was no handshakes, and there was lots of, Sky were getting very excited about, will they shake hands? Did you see them shake hands, Matt Murray? So that it added to the tension of what probably would have been a tense game if Monk hadn't said anything, and almost meant that a result ended up being more likely to be a draw because neither person could afford to lose the face of losing. Yeah. So if we sort of put the week to bed, we pull forward to today's match. The build up to today, I just took down a couple of notes. Charlton announced that there was a takeover, which seemed to really please the 10 to 13 people that attended the match from the Charlton side.
Did you think the attendance was that bad? I thought it looked quite good at the Valley. I thought at least the camera angles I kind of briefly globbed on a bit of a cloud. Maybe I completely misguided with this one, Rich.
I don't know how many people. Maybe I should probably check my facts. But when they were when they were interviewing Chris Powell after the end of the game, well, not at the end of the game, sort of just half time and things like that. It looked pretty dead. Most of the rest of the ground, but maybe the chunk directly behind the camera was there was a bit of PR going on and made to look pretty filled out. I don't know. Oh man, BBC's not giving me the attendance really easily. That's a bit of a shame.
So you wonder if maybe they got a whole bunch of school kids in and cardboard cutouts.
I just wasn't blown away by how many. It felt like it was pretty dead, and I suppose there's a lot to be said because Hillsborough didn't feel great on watching on the iFollow. A lot of people said it sounded dead at Hillsborough, so you never really know that you're getting the full feel for these things. Mm-hmm. But so it's just Chris Powell was talking about the good old days when he'd pack them in. They'd be packed to the rafters, loving it, bouncing, making all this noise.
Oh, Chris Powell.
Yeah.
The interesting thing with the investment, I guess. So I was watching here in Canada. This was one of the select games for Sky, which the rights are given to DAZN. DAZN are they're kind of like a Netflix of sports streaming. Here in Canada, they've got the rights to the Premier League. Which I don't know how much it really bloodies the nose of some of the big sports networks here, like Sportsnet and TSN. They also have the rights to NFL. The interesting thing is, I think I may mention this previous on the podcast, so the Sky commentaries I don't get on this feed, and I just get some guy who's basically just doing his minimal hours to get, it's almost like he's trying to get a pension. He's just so non-committal, and I will make some further points when we get into the actual analysis. But he says like, the hilarious thing as well with the lineup is that they didn't actually show the lineup prior to my coverage, so I was learning of the lineup from looking at the shot of the players in the tunnel. So that was interesting. Anyway, the thing I was going to say with the investment, just on your note as well, was, they made a mild point about it, but this guy just is not getting... It felt like it was definitely part of the narrative, but he's not getting excited about it. Yeah. And, I don't know if the camera angle was shot on, basically. So this guy who's a new owner, who's this bald, besuited black gentleman, and then had seemingly an advisor or translator talking to him.
And it's the football pitch.
It seemed that way. It seemed like he was very new to. He seemed like a very attractive, handsome, but slightly simpleton of a man. I thought this was someone who's supposedly going to be taking over the club and probably got some real business nows and balls and money behind him. And he just seemed very kind of. It was just a very strange shot. I don't know. He seemed very kind of unimposing from what he said.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it, but they often just went back to the shot of, this advisor talking to him. And I thought it was funny, a bit like, well, you put money in to buy this club, Mr. I don't know his gentleman's name is. But you understand that all these players are terrible, and now we've got 12 injuries, and we need to sign an entire new team. Added in with just basically telling him the rules of the game. It felt very strange. It felt a bit wet. It didn't just everything about it, and that's probably also hindered and tinged by whoever Johnny pension grabber, whoever's my commentator here on the DAZN feed. It wasn't particularly great.
Oh dear. Yeah. Well, I think he's. I think maybe not a sort of businessman of any note, because I think it's more like. It's some more Middle Eastern dosh, some crown prince or other.
Right. Okay. That maybe suits maybe what I'm kind of very harshly just projecting onto his character from that situation. He didn't look very comfortable there. Which, I mean, you sometimes get that with a lot of owners, right? It feels like they're in a very different land, I guess.
Yeah. It's a strange one. I mean, so there was a lot of talk on Sky about how depleted they were in terms of injuries and some sickness in the ground. I did note in the second half that they had to bring a little boy on. Yes, minute 61, Charlton brought on a tiny boy who was trying to grow a wispy moustache. I don't know who I'm slandering. There you go. Vennings. Yeah, he just looked like a tiny little baby boy.
But he's called Vennings, but he does have tiny boy on the back of his shirt, doesn't he, Richard?
Wasn't it Little Boy?
Little Boy. Yeah, there we go.
And boy spelled B-O-I because he's street.
Dropping a new mixtape on SoundCloud.
Yeah, Little Boy. He's got all the way to the end of Movember and it still barely looks like a shadow on his.
Still terrible. Looks like a bit of soil on his upper lip.
The other things I noticed, so they used a statistic that we had not won away since the 28th of September. It's the first time Fletcher, Forestieri and Nuyu have started a game together ever. And
that is quite an interesting stat, actually.
Yeah. And then also in the build-up, Chris Powell called us flat track bullies because we beat the rubbish teams and struggle against middle and big teams. And that's a particular joy because it was a subject. It wasn't a title that we nearly had for this podcast because we just love the terminology of flat track bullies.
We did talk about doing an Android sports score system called Flat Track Bully as well.
Yes, we did. It may still happen. Please don't steal this idea.
Coming for you, Flash Score.
Yeah. So what that starting lineup very positive, particularly away from home. So that's always a good sign.
And my revelation of seeing the players come down the tunnel and piecing together who was there. But the funny thing was, actually, I didn't recognize that Forestieri was coming out the tunnel. I don't know. Okay. Maybe it's his new kind of haircut. Maybe he looks bit more just like a generic footballer rather than that kind of maybe that kind of Beatles mop top that maybe he used to kind of sport. Kind of short hair. I don't know. But my comments were Lees, Dawson, all my second string favorites, including Smallmouth Tommy and Mild Save Cammy.
Excellent. Smallmouth Tommy.
And then I saw Mr. Hutchinson as well. Then finally the lineup, and then I was surprised to see. I mean, this is quite a revelation. The fact that you said that, the first time that Fletcher, Nuyu, and Forestieri have all started the game together.
Yeah.
Which then gives you a very real idea, because the probably reason why it hasn't happened is because of that giant communication and narrative about Forestieri doesn't want to play in the wing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unless you go for a weird 4-3-3. I don't know. But so actually it is kind of crazy, and I was interested to see how Forestieri would do on the wing in that kind of 4-4-2.
Well, I think even when he plays on the wing, he doesn't really play on the wing, does he? I think wherever Forestieri plays, he ends up kind of playing all over the place. Whether he starts up front, if he starts up front, he has a tendency to drift wide. If he starts on the left, he has a tendency to drift inside. So I think he kind of plays where he feels like most of the time.
But I think the worst thing I think we can probably say for Forestieri is when he thinks, I'm a striker, I need to be played up front.
Yeah.
But most of the time he just stays static in the middle, I seem to think.
Yeah.
Because most of his best work is done on the wing.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the interesting thing. So cutting inside, but also, just any work he does out there on the width. And I guess the interesting thing is, definitely we have a narrative about Nando being a very selfish player. It's felt a long time since some of his hard work in industry on the wing, but definitely he's had a lot of times, especially in that kind of, the earliest iteration of Forestieri at Wednesday, of doing a lot of backtracking and doing a lot of support for his fullback.
I think he did track back a fair bit. I also thought Fox put just a tremendous shift in all over. Particularly first half, he was making some really good runs, and he cropped up sort of in their box a few times for sort of long diagonal passes. So I thought he really did a job of work. Did
you
Captain
remember what Bannon and Fletcher were saying about Morgan Fox?
Oh, it was some phrase, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah. It was some kind of very bland Cockney man kind of
That's
phrase.
more like it, or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yes. So just getting into the game, very early doors, Ati Nuyu had a goal ruled out for offside. Rightly so, but it set a tone in a little bit. But he took it so well.
It was so well, and that was a brilliant cross from the free
It
kick from
was.
Forestieri as well.
Yeah.
Lovely. Just everything was just textbook about it.
But Charlton sort of that could have stood as their warning bell that maybe they needed to batten down the hatches for efforts from distance. But pretty short order after that, we then had a cross for a lovely cross. Well, Fox Morgan laid it back to Bannon. Bannon hit a first time cross in, and Fletcher scored a beautiful header across the goalkeeper into the far post. Just lovely stuff.
It was just absolutely exquisite, wasn't it? I mean, we talk about the fact that Fletcher doesn't really score easy headers. Yes. So, as Bannon said about his Scottish big man pal in the Sky Sports thing, he loves a header. And,
he's as big as that, and he loves a header. Oh, he's this big. He's this big because previously he described Bannon as he's that wee.
He's that wee. Yeah. Which he is. He is the weeek of the Scottish contingent at Wednesday.
It certainly is. And then Harris put in a good cross, which Fletcher headed back across the goalkeeper again, and a bit of poor goalkeeper sort of spilled it, leaving Forestieri with a tap in, which somehow he didn't even hit the target with. And as is typical of our recent luck, just over a minute after that incident happened, Charlton got an incredibly fluky goal.
Yeah.
I don't think Doty passed the ball to their player. I think it was a bad cross, but their player...
Really?
I don't think he picked him out. I think he just was flinging it in. But he was in a good position, sort of poked it at Tom Lees. It came off the bottom of Tom Lees' foot and ricocheted off the inside of the post to be a goal. So from being...
Well, it was kind of going towards the far corner. It ricochets off. I'm going to really JFK this one. I think it was kind of like the inside of his left thigh, I think, or calf, I thought it was.
I thought it came off the bottom of his, his instep of his shoe, but it doesn't really matter.
It took complete wrong direction and then just piffed its way in off the post, basically. And yeah, the whole thing was incredibly just poor and just so unfortunate and spawny from a Charlton perspective. I was quite surprised that Adebayo was outpaced on the wing.
I think there was a specific criticism of him from Powell, who does know his way around a bit of defending, old Chris Powell. And he said, as a fullback, he should have dropped earlier. So I think the fact that he was never going to get the ball in the first... He sort of sold himself, basically, in the first instance, and then couldn't recover in time. Whereas if he dropped back, he would have been running sort of and had more of a chance of winning the ball back. So yeah, no, it was disappointing that he didn't deal with it better. Probably one of maybe their best player, Doty, I thought. He really gave Harris a tough time that first half. I think Harris only really got free of him once. So that tends to mean you're doing quite a good job as a fullback if you only get caught out once by Kadeem Harris. But yeah, so from near total dominance, basically, for 20, 25 minutes, we... once again are in a position where we're drawing a football match. So there was a decent little effort from Bannon where actually Fletcher played Bannon through for once, and just to kind of mix things up. And then towards the end there was one of those moments where Fox popped up in the box and laid it back for Harris, who had a pretty decent left-footed shot, but well saved by the keeper. And then at half time, I just wrote down, worried about sounding like a broken record, but right now the Sheffield Wednesday LP is knackered. Did you have any other sort of half-time observations, or did you just roll straight through to the second half?
Just the fact that Hutchinson was vying for a yellow. He really was playing his heart out to get a booking.
Yes.
I wish I was determined about most things in life that, Sam Hutchinson is about picking up a booking. I wonder if he has a bonus in his contract, of which maybe he gets £20. So then he's like, well, I make £5 on that. After I pay off the £15 yellow card fine or whatever it is through the FA. It's staggering. It really is staggering.
I think you peel back the onion-like layers of shell companies based in the Cayman Islands and elsewhere, and eventually at the heart of Hutch yellow card bingo, the man he's creaming off a little bit of every transaction is Sam Hutchinson. He knows when it's going to happen because he's in charge of it. He knows the minute. He's got. You think
he's got one of those Superman 2 type things that he gets he's getting the rounded digits or whatever it is.
That's it. I think
that's his small minor commission on these big bets that are going on yellow card bingo.
He's running the raffle and taking a piece of every ticket sold, but he's also winning the raffle. He's so cheeky.
He is indeed.
Yes, so Hodge now well and truly, hurtling towards his second suspension of the season already, wanting to get it out of the way around Christmas time. So
he's working hard for that Christmas break. He is,
exactly.
Isn't he? I mean, Liam Palmer did mistime that completely, as I think some other people have made that analogy that he just completely got the timing wrong for the time off he needs for Christmas.
He's on 9 already.
I know. So another one, he's gone for 2.
Oh,
right?
My goodness. 16 appearances and 9 yellow cards is absurd. It really is.
So the man's paid £135 in yellow card fines if it is £15 a time.
Oh, that'll be smarting. Sorry, kids, just Satsumas for Christmas this year. Daddy loves a yellow. So, but there was a couple of people we were a bit like the walking wounded towards the end of that half because Bannon had pulled up with his ankle hurting him. Fletcher had materialised another one of his injuries that he laughably one of the commentators says he's not the sort of guy to go down if there's not something wrong. It's like he's exactly the sort of guy. He goes down literally every game.
He does. He really does. Yeah.
He's down, rolling around in pain at least once per 60 minutes on the football pitch.
Did you feel, or maybe it was a lot of my projection and my reading, did you feel that like a lot of the energy was just kind of sapped out of us after that equaliser? I mean, it was a real sucker match. But again, the other note I was just going to say is I'm praying for half time again. Yeah. So just the opportunity to just get a bit of better direction and start with intensity and desire, how would I like that if we did that at the start and we just kept that up for, the vast majority of the 90 minutes.
Yeah, you're right. I think it was a real sickener and it took the team a good while to get back to it. I think we had a little flurry towards the end of the half, but that you're still talking a good 20 minutes or so of licking our wounds and feeling sorry for ourselves. So the third person to pick up an injury, and it was actually in the move that we scored the goal from, was Forestieri. So he sort of...
Right, because there was another note I said, is that he kind of went down, but I didn't know if that was anything huge.
Yeah, well, it was one of those where there was nobody anywhere near him, really, and he sort of pivoted to get out of the way as Bannon was charging down the wing, and something clearly went in his knee. And they did say second half that he'd tweaked his MCL. So
wow.
It did look like he jarred his knee, basically. So that's.
They did say jarred his knee for the coming out for the second half for the the unimpassioned commentator. who had. Oh, but I was wondering at that point whether it was just going to be I wondered whether it was maybe just a harsh performance, like substitution.
Yeah.
So it was like at that point, I genuinely thought like, oh, it's sometimes one of the situations where you think like you're seeing the same game as the manager. But so yeah, I thought it was maybe a little bit harsh to see him gone. But then as it kind of found out, it was an injury.
Yeah.
Which I thought he was having he was having an okay game as far as Forestieri. Miss outstanding.
The miss was pretty harrowing, but I think people were praising Forestieri's impact midweek and clamouring for him to get a start today. I felt midweek it just was another one of these performances where there's kind of a buzz in the air and there's a buzz about, I don't know, I think there's just something inherently exciting about Forestieri with the ball at his feet, but the end product it's pretty hard to find from all that.
And that's and this is going into the overall arching question we have about Forestieri, which is, if you think about it from a very simple thing, it's kind of like a machine that you're feeding in input to get output. We're giving him a lot of money and there's a lot of goodwill and a lot of time towards Fernando Forestieri, and the output we get from him hasn't been good for a while.
No.
Hasn't been anywhere near. So the question then becomes, if you're spending 25,000 a week on a player like Forestieri and you're not getting that, how much do we think it's anything mildly better than Jordan Rhodes, really?
Yeah, it reminds me of the last days of JJ in some ways. Because there was definitely he had a year too long, I think, JJ, towards the end of his Wednesday career.
So did Glenn Louvens.
Yes, but they're so different.
I think I know they're different. They're different players. And you're talking about limitations of who they are as football players and coming into that final stretch. But that's an age perspective. Like, there shouldn't really be anything. We shouldn't at this stage, unless the injuries have nobbled him far more than we can imagine. He has come over a few injuries.
I purely mean, really, he has had a lot of injuries. I would hate to think that it's that, but I just purely mean that the place he holds in the crowd's mind and hearts,
right? Okay,
is not level with what he is producing on a football pitch. It's a sense memory.
But then that's the same question, the same argument for a lot of our kind of latter-day strikers, such as, modern-day expensive Jeffers, Jordan Rhodes. Like, we can still play the same game with that, right?
Yeah, but I think JJ, we were so conditioned to, as we talked about this mouse in the bucket, we were so conditioned to be kind of excited by because he's JJ, who knows what he's going to come up with, but it's probably going to be something special. Like, he's probably going to charge down a wing and cut inside and hit a great shot. And in the last season, actually, he couldn't do that. He didn't seem to. I don't think he scored at all in his last season with us. And it's that. But as fans, we like to have something to get excited about. So, like, when Forestieri comes on, we all respond, we all react, and we're excited. There's this kind of crackle in the air with Forestieri on the ball. I just think the times that has been rewarded with an actual something that was worth the excitement are increasingly few and far between. And I mean, I know he scored a couple of incredible goals towards the end of last season, but that's how far back you actually have to go for and he just dropped a shoulder and he did something.
Yeah, I know. But also we kind of talk about, I think the interesting nature about football is that seasons are the same year. Like, the end of the season, end of the season is the same year. It's the same calendar year. But there feels a big chasm between what happens at the end of last season and what happens at the end of next season. I'm not saying that about I'm specifically not saying that about what's happened now. Though there is actually an invitation to look at that and say that for that reason. but actually just in the nature of football itself. Like, I think there's often a mentality if things go well that, oh, you can come back and then just carry on with that. And that just doesn't always happen.
No.
But I mean, the flip side of that is there is a positive, and maybe sometimes it can work well, but, can sometimes be misguided. It's that confidence we all have at the start of the season from all football fans.
Yeah.
My dad has said this, and I think I may have said this previously to you or on the podcast. Every football fan thinks they're going to have a good season.
Yeah.
Nobody thinks they're going to get relegated. Rarely.
Yeah.
So, it's been a long time. It's been a long time from that sparkle of Forestieri, that form. But even then, I think we really saw... It was just such a magic time for the first season of Forestieri.
Yeah.
Because he came in, it was this fresh, bright spark. We got him for about $3 million, which is an absolute steal at the time for someone out of favour. He came in, arm around the player, giving him a new time, a new lease on life. The fans took to him, and it felt like he loved it. We loved him. And it's been such a long time since that honeymoon. It's kind of like a relationship. It's just gone exceptionally stale and cold. We could do a film like Blue Valentine, Rich, about Forestieri. This is a real broken relationship. And now it's just there was a lot of industry, but there wasn't it's kind of making the comment I'll maybe just bypass this from my rating because this is all we saw of Fernando Forestieri today. So this is kind of his part. This is the cab fare is finished for this ride. But just, if you can imagine him just playing with a smile on his face, he just doesn't look like he wants to be there. And right now we don't want him to be there because we've missed the joy of, we've missed those big bids.
Yeah.
From the time Fulham supposedly putting in a bid around or north of £10 million, whatever it was, or how much, I'm not entirely sure. But that never materialized. We've missed the boat for selling a player in his prime. And now we have someone who we felt like is our biggest asset and paying a big bumper contract. And obviously having that history, that was my second to last trip back to the UK, was seeing that game with you, which was the first game after the playoff final, the home game against Villa, televised, Villa from their relegation. Forestieri scored. And then the next week he didn't travel to Norwich because... We don't know. We don't know the reason. We think we have a pretty good idea of a reason.
Yeah.
He has refuted that it isn't contract related, but seemingly was contract related. Since then, we've had a series of big suspensions. We've had racist language, the in and out with the FA. We've had him booked. We've had him sent off for diving. We've had big injuries. We've had the fallout and fight with Sam Winnall. It's been a very difficult relationship.
It certainly has. Yeah. I just think it's just, I think more than anything, it's just academically an interesting thing to just, it's like almost a Pavlovian response, but it's increasingly disconnected from reality, the excitement of, because just as I say, I think midweek and today just felt like more of the same. That we want to get excited, we are excited, but nothing much really happens.
Yeah.
So long and short of it was at half time, Jacob Murphy replaced Fernando Forestieri. And I think it made us look quite a lot more balanced as a team. I think we were able to attack down both flanks in a way that just didn't happen. And Murphy's early crosses from the right-hand side were pretty effective as well, I would say. We didn't get any goals out of them, but it was a danger pretty much constantly when he had the ball.
Do you find it interesting that with Jacob Murphy, like in recent performances, he's been of a decent quality, and it feels kind of like saying previously with Forestieri when he's out of song and when somebody's had misgivings to his game. Now with Jacob Murphy, it feels like a luxury we can afford. It feels like he's doing the good stuff and there's no great downside to him.
Yeah, he seems to have, whether it was a kind of coaching thing or something that's come from himself, he just seems to be putting a lot more effort in overall. I think I suspect a bit of it is a bit more confidence, and the fact he's been favoured by the coaching staff over Reach several times will be a boost to his his ego and probably feed into the way he plays. But yeah, he just seems to he's having a good run with us, and it's nice to see. And I mean, we were almost at the point of saying, we just would rather not see him on the team sheet, because he wasn't giving enough, and he's had a massive turnaround since that Blackburn game. Personally, as he's having a pretty good run of things. And I do think he continued that today. Bannon had a pretty good shot early doors. We just seemed to, for the first, again, we were right on it again, coming out from the start of the second half, and probably had sort of 15 minutes or so of just constant pressure and chances. Not all of them brilliant, but Bannon's delivery was pretty good and consistent, and Harris was able to get some more joy when he switched flanks as well.
Yeah. Did you think at the 49-minute mark? I really want to say that I thought that Harris being fouled was a penalty all day long.
It was a penalty all day long. I can't believe the commentators watched it back and were like, "Nah, there's not much there." He's cleaned him out, rugby tackle style.
Yeah, exactly.
Got nowhere near the ball. Pratley just well, he's always lived up to his name, hasn't he?
Some real nominative determinism there, isn't it? How old is Darren Pratley?
He's another one of these that just followed the ref around, tugging on his jacket. Miss! Ridiculous. I thought Oshilaja looked really good for them. He really stood out, sort of shielding the defence, and he made life difficult for Atty and Fletch, with the long balls coming forward. I thought he looked good for them, but he pretty much was the only one, to be honest. I don't think anybody else really stood out. The next note there is that the tiny boy with the wispy mustache came on.
Little boy.
Harris forced a good save from the goalie. And then at 77th minute, it was feeling like, oh my goodness, is this going to happen again? Where we create chance after chance and we just don't make anything happen, and the game dwindles away. Luongo came on.
Well, even with the 65th minute, Harris had a nice shot as well.
Yeah.
Which was on the angle, which was palmed away, which kind of felt kind of telling to that point. Aside from...
It was a really good shot, wasn't it?
It was. But it kind of felt like we're still lacking that kind of, killer
instinct.
That killer instinct, that knack. It's a bit, as much as I think we've kind of praised Jacob Murphy, I think he is a little bit... I think he kind of sums up that we've got some very proficient, very skilled, very quick, dangerous-looking players, but they're just lacking a bit of teeth. And that's kind of been the nature for Wednesday, like this season, and probably quite a far back. I don't really think about how far back I can go, but we're not very. Yeah, we're not. We need a lot of shots to score most of the time, right?
Massive amount. That's it. Today we had 18 shots to their 8.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for a 93rd minute goal, we would have scraped victory by a single goal.
Was that how long it got to when we got to the penalty?
So
that was 79, right?
Yeah, we scored in the 80th minute. So 79th minute was Murphy sort of pushed into the box against Ostuma, who is kind of their attacking midfielder. So I don't know how he ended up one-on-one with the winger, but presumably Doty, who everybody was milking themselves over, was caught upfield.
And from my perspective, from where I was watching, it took a long time to register that it was a penalty. So
the ref took a while to think about. He really thought about it, and they said that the gap must have meant that he'd got communication from the linesman. So I take it he wasn't convinced on his own.
Which I kind of thought. Which I wondered whether it was thanks to. I was wondering whether it was actually like a makeup, but then the interesting thing was we didn't have. If it would have been in the first half that the Harris penalty shout would have happened, maybe it could have been countered with an actual. I'll give him a penalty because I ballsed up with the previous one, because he did balls up with that previous one.
He did.
The first one was a penalty all day long. The second one, hilariously, was soft.
I thought that was a penalty all day long as well. I thought he sold himself, got nowhere near it. Murphy's made the best of the contact. The only
Murphy
reason
Murphy had a nice little snack on that one. I'll tell you that.
had a good chew on it.
Yeah.
But then I was so I
He's had a
think
nice healthy visit to the buffet on that one, Rich. Really did. It felt a lot like Kieran Lee won that penalty for us last week, and it felt like much the same.
Yeah.
But then the thing I was going to say was I didn't realize that there was a gap. So nothing was communicated because I didn't hear a whistle. Right. And I didn't know if I would hear a whistle on the commentary because the sound isn't very good, because it's the championship. Who wants to spend the big bucks that we're doing, for the Premier League coverage, where we can go to the studio and, Michael Owen can tell us about his horses. Oh, and on the Premier League coverage, Rich, it was whoever the presenter is on this DAZN Matchday Live, Michael Owen and Glenn Hoddle. And Glenn Hoddle made a reference about horses to, really pander to Michael Owen.
Oh dear. You'll know better this, Michael. You'll know. Shall we be friends after?
I've looked in my crystal ball. I think we're going to be friends. All right, I don't know whether it was just like I get said again, this commentator had a no enthusiasm clause in his contract.
Yeah.
So it was just the limpest thing ever to just think, we have a penalty. It wasn't, Yeah. It was so strange. It was so strange. Much like the Lee penalty.
Yeah.
That felt a little bit underwhelming. And then once again, I'm in a situation where I think after this, I really want to give my narrative, things that I was writing, because I felt like it was going to be one of those games for so long. And that was my mentality of this game until it changed with this penalty. And much like the one I watched last week, I don't have the biggest amount of confidence in Fletcher or any penalty taker at Wednesday. That's not to discriminate against Fletcher. It's just a very Wednesday.
Equal opportunities, lack of faith.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, if I was your boss and you came to me saying, I think you hate me, and I'd be like, no, I hate everybody. I think everybody's useless here.
Everybody in the entire world.
And myself.
Global warming is a punishment from God. We deserve to die. As a species.
It's been a good run.
We've had a good run.
I mean, we created cheese on toast, right? We created the cheese toasty. It's been good. Did you know I recently found out that the Kiwis and New Zealand people, they have a cuisine called toasty pie, which is basically if you've ever put tinned Heinz spaghetti into a toasted sandwich.
Okay, that's toasty pie.
That's their big claim to fame, and also. They like a sausage sizzle, I think it's called, which is basically like a sausage on a slice of white bread, and it is the most it is the most horrifically northern thing that's even worse than some of the cuisine. I think it's really unfair. I go to other places in the world. I live in Canada, and people just routinely tell me after things like, I like your accent, blah, 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 blah. The English cuisine's shit, isn't it? I'm like, well, I don't know. It's kind of terrible. It's kind of fun and round, but that is fucking awful. I was watching a Stephen Colbert where he was having one with one of the Flight of the Conchords and Lucy Lawless.
Okay.
And they're just proud as punch of their shit sausage and a slice of Wonder Bread. It's garbage. It's absolute garbage, Rich. Anyway, why did I bring this up? Fletcher taking a penalty. Underwhelming.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Of which it was... he dispatched it lovingly. I love how he gave a little look to the corner and he just absolutely sold the keeper and then just stroked it home just so beautifully. Yeah. It was a really, really, to have two exceptionally classy finishes from Stephen Fletcher in a game is, I think we need to get the man a bottle of champagne and he can...
These are the best of times, aren't they, really?
They really are. They really are.
Did you pick up the needle with the goalkeeper? So the goalkeeper was trash talking Fletcher, walking alongside him as he walked to the referee to get the ball and walked back to the penalty spot. The keeper was in his ear the whole time, and then he was like yelling stuff on the goal line and like doing pull-ups on the bar and stuff. So that is why Fletcher got in his face after he scored.
Really? Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I completely missed
He
that
gave
whole
himself
thing.
back
I want to
after
go back
scoring.
and watch that again, I'll be honest.
Um,
Because he got a yellow,
Yeah, so-
didn't he, the keeper?
what's that, sorry?
The Phillips, the Charlton keeper, got a
Yes.
yellow?
He did, yeah, because he was telling teacher about the big boy shouted in my face, and I think the ref was like, you were just being a prick. You just like he's got a right to go, equal,
Yeah.
equal response.
Did the referee say to him, "You're an addict, not a dick"?
I hope he
Sorry.
did.
Have to reel that one out.
I think he was too muscly to come up with a funny line like that. You can't, God gives things in little baskets. You don't get a full compliment of everything. I'm really evoking a lot of God this evening. I'm sorry about that. So
What did you think of the just as a completely left field point before we kind of proceed, as is the nature on Different Gravy? Cameron Dawson's baseball cap, brings a Wednesday baseball cap as per usual.
Yeah.
I want to ask a question. Has a keeper ever gone to an away game without a baseball cap and then he's had to buy like an opposing team's baseball cap to wear?
Oh, I bet it's happened, and I would like to see the evidence. That'd be fun.
I mean, I'm not a professional goalkeeper, so I'd naturally not think like, here's my gloves and my boots that I'm putting in my kit and my, my expensive, lovely wash bag that I'm going to take to the game with me. I wouldn't think of bringing a baseball cap unless it comes under, is that a kit man thing?
I would guess a kit man thing nowadays.
Do you think that's like a real percentage that elevates a good kit man to a great kit man?
He never forgets a baseball cap, does this kit man?
Baseball cap for the keeper. Yeah.
on Kitman LinkedIn. That's one of the special skills.
And Chris Kirkland would give him an endorsement for bringing a baseball cap.
That does remind me the getting the thing from the club shop. Was it Bolton or Millwall who turned up and they had to wear our away kit?
That was Millwall, I think. Yeah,
Millwall,
until the second half where they changed
yes,
it, right?
Yes, they changed it at half time. Yeah, that was really odd. It was like watching the reserves or watching a training session. So in the aftermath of the goal, we brought Reach on for Harris. We then started to have our usual breakdown, precipitated by Tom Lees in the 83rd minute, playing a blind pass back to Cameron Dawson from the halfway line, which... Now, this is not... I think it's hard to compare the two, but almost certainly Westwood would have been too far back to have dealt with it as quickly as Dawson did. Dawson was on his penalty spot and therefore able to charge out and clear it and make sure nothing came of it. But essentially Tom Lee's played a through ball for their striker with no... Like, he can't have looked and thought that was a good idea. It just must have been a pure panic move. But then, so we increasingly sort of felt like we were getting pushed back. 87th, 88th minute. Oshilaja had a decent effort around that time. But then I think, actually, we started to carry the ball forward, hold possession in their half, which is a much easier way to wind down the clock than getting closer and closer to your goalkeeper's toes. So Reach and Barry Bannon had a lovely sort of 1-2. Reach pushed to the byline, chipped a little cross up, and Nuyu smashed it home.
Oh, it was such a good cross from Reach.
Such a relief.
And I know. I was just, I guess I didn't really know much of what Nuyu did in that game prior to that. I mean, he was on the pitch, definitely. Anyone who's
him and Fletcher, it's not a good combination.
No, anyone who saw that game could attest it's that Nuyu was on the pitch.
He's hard to miss. He's a big chap.
He's a big chap indeed. But yeah, to just such a beautiful cross from Adam Reach. It was an absolute peach.
It was great.
Lovely. Yeah. Just kind of curving, the right height, the right pace, completely in the right area. Nuyu was just a mark. And Nuyu just met it so well.
He did.
It was... I really felt like some of that Fletcher class must have rubbed off onto Nuyu. just for a series of osmosis, or maybe a glance. They just gave a little glance to each other, and that just Fletcher was like, "Oh, Big Dave, you good?" or something. Something like that. And then it was lovely. It was so beautiful.
Yeah, I do.
And that was it. It was just a game which we just thought, oh no, this again, to 2-1, to be like, oh no, I've got 10, 15 minutes of just watching Wednesday, just screw this up. To then just have the gloss, to just have that deflation of release of stress, just with such a lovely header. And then we scored 3 away from goal and we took 3 points. It's insane.
Oh, what a treat! I do think that wash of relief at the Ati Nuyu goal, which meant we were going to win. I mean, it was basically the last kick of the game, wasn't it?
The final whistle was pretty much after that. Yeah.
Yeah. What? Phew! It's one of the overarching feelings. We've actually got a win over the line. I'm sure the team are feeling the same way. We shouldn't have conceded today. That's the only sort of flying.
Yeah, and grossly harsh that we did. It was completely undeserved. Like I felt So here's the thing. I would say I felt the play was even for the first half, and for most of it, I thought we were the better side. I think we edged it in terms of quality. But for that definite first half, I thought it was pretty even. But just for that little bit of quality we actually showed, we should have taken, the win in the first half effectively. Still had the lead intact. To just concede such a shoddy, spawny goal was just heartbreaking. I was.
Yeah.
As upset as I was about conceding and maybe some of the questions a little bit over Adebayo's role, I felt for Lees. I felt for Dawson.
Yeah.
I felt for the rest of the defence, really.
It was desperately unlucky, and as you say, completely against the run of play. I think possession was pretty much down the line. I think it was 50-50, but
it was very much. It's very much we had a spell, they had a spell. It wasn't too bad a game of football for the external viewer, I guess.
Yeah, but Charlton had their spell sort of just over the halfway line, and we were having our spells in their box essentially. I think that Sky have a statistic of how many touches in the box, and we were something like 40 touches to their 3 or 5. Like, we were constantly on them. Like, when we have the ball, we are very effective.
Sorry. Do they also have a stat for how many times they touch themselves in the box? God, they like themselves, don't they?
Oh, dear.
How much did Keith Andrews like himself today? Things like that. Who was on the punditry and the commentary today from the Sky feed?
Well, it was Chris Powell pitch side with Minto. So
got Minto. Oh no.
So halftime, Chris Powell was. Oh, he had a big cheesy grin on his face. He was loving life. When they cut to him at the end of the game, somebody had well and truly pissed on his chips, and that somebody was Ati Nuyu.
Beautiful.
Oh, he was pig sick, his beloved Charlton.
Hilarious.
Didn't really turn up for the second.
I find it hilarious that now I'm in a position that, like, I kind of miss the Sky commentary, Rich. I miss these characters and the narrative and like what they're trying to sell, even though it's just complete bullshit. It's just complete BS. It's just going to get me irate, and but I feel sad that I couldn't be there with you, in person and in spirit to share some of these ridiculous and to just have the joy when you get the feeling that there's not a particularly Wednesday-centric feed kind of in the media and these coverage of these games to just absolutely just rub their face in it.
Oh, it is. It's such a treat.
Just rub their Cockney mugs in the piss chips, Beautiful.
Oh, dear. So I suppose we should go on to some player ratings. Just a couple of little things. I mean, maybe these are better at the end of the game, but just sort of I'm just looking at some of the stats for the season. So shots per game, Wednesday are second in the league for shots per game at 13.9. So only Leeds take more shots per game than us. Just to feed into this thing that we seem to take a lot of chances to score. But the other interesting thing is looking at their best 11 for the season to date. Stephen Fletcher's up front with Alexander Mitrovic.
Wow.
He's having a good season, isn't he?
I mean, we're about the halfway mark now. Is that right, in terms of games? We're about 18, 19 games deep.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, 19 games in.
And he scored 8 goals.
Yeah.
I mean, we'd kind of expect him to be around this stage in like March, you know?
Yeah. This is if he stays fit and keeps scoring at this kind of lick, then it's probably looking like his best goal scoring season in his whole career, which is incredible 15. At 32 years of age.
I know, at least 15, 16, 17 goals, possibly.
Yeah. Well, here's fingers crossed. I was going to say, sorry, that and again, this probably could wait. Just jumping the gun on all these things, but I think Nuhiu and Fletcher doesn't particularly work brilliantly well as a partnership. Although partnerships grow over time. But I think what it does is we see more of Stephen Fletcher as a striker.
Mm.
It means he doesn't need to work quite so hard on all the other stuff. And he's more likely to be in positions to get the goal, like the first goal. So maybe that's a benefit of it. That's a little bit. You
felt the other week that Nuhiu and Fletcher were it was clicking the other week. So that was correct. Was that last week we talked about that?
Well, I think again, second half I thought they were better than the first half for the same reason. What tends to happen is Fletcher plays target man still, and then you've got Ati-Nui, who is a completely useless striker, because for all the criticism we have of Fletcher as a clinical finisher, Ati-Nui is much worse at that side of the game. And in addition to that, he's a lot less mobile, so he doesn't get in position to get the chances very often, and isn't very good at taking them.
Which seems to be the criticism of the 4-3-3 and now stretching into this 4-4-2 with Nuhiu, is that Fletcher's an isolated man. He's a man who plays a game on his own.
Yeah. It's tricky. There's not an easy solution, but I do see, as I say, I see that we get more there's more threat from Fletcher with Ati-Nui as a partner, because Ati can go and win the headers, which means Fletcher can get in the box a bit more often, whereas Fletcher on his own is having to do both those jobs. And I think he does an okay job of it most of the time, but he can easily get bogged down in the busy work and not get involved in
Do you find it interesting? Because I mean, Nuhiu's been okay. He's been all right. Find it very interesting that we've got. I don't like counting Forestieri as a striker in the equation. I don't like thinking that he's number 5 or one of the 5. So I'm really going to look at 2 from 4 with Winnall and Rhodes. Do you find it interesting that basically we've got 2 very, very, very similar players? Or not very similar players, but I think just in kind of views of roles as strikers, of powerhouse, target man.
They're similar archetypes, aren't they?
Yes, very much so. They have a similar personality type, I guess, in that regards. But then, we're not seemingly liking Winnall.
No.
Rhodes hasn't even had a chance to... Oh, he has had a chance, I should say, but he's not taken the chance to impress with a new manager.
I just don't think he's got anything left. To be honest, I've stopped expecting anything.
I know. But to just think that Winnall seems to now be completely sidelined. There've been games when he hasn't even been in a 16. Yeah. And the thing that was frustrating for me today was, luckily, touch wood. Wherever that's wooden around me. It all worked out. It all worked out. But at times I was thinking, I don't know if we really need to... I think Harris does get a bit... We ask a lot of Harris. Harris does very well.
Yeah.
You don't really want to lose Bannon when you're trying to win a game. We'd already got rid of Forestieri for Murphy. The only other thing went through the middle was then, Hutch for Longo, which happened, which I thought was a good substitution. But then in an attacking sense, I'd kind of like someone new to come on, just to freshen things up front. And I don't know if did we even have anyone on the bench? in that regards, like a striker?
Winnall and Lee were both on the bench.
Winnall was on the bench.
Yeah, Winnall was on the bench.
Okay, but I don't feel that we ever really see that opportunity to bring in.
I just don't. But that would need to be a scenario where it's worthwhile to bring him on. I just don't think I don't think he would have added anything today.
Yeah.
He's not good enough. Frankly, that is why Rhodes and Winnall are not playing. There's no grand conspiracy or brilliant tactical nous to it. Neither of them are good enough. There will be moments where I think Winnall offers something because he's got a bit of pace. So I think probably Winnall's place is we're winning a game. If we were 3-1 up and there was 15 minutes left and somebody's looking tired, then you maybe put Winnall up top because he can sort of keep them honest at the back with a bit of pace on the break. But I just don't. I wouldn't trust him in a busy midfield or defence against a defence that we're trying to break down. I don't think he's got quality to do it. So, and he's not a threat in the same way that Nuyu or Fletcher are in the air. We've got good quality coming into the box because if you've got Harris, Bannon and Murphy on the pitch, those are three players that can put in a decent cross for you. And the two players that I would prefer to have on the end of those crosses are Ati Nuyu and Stephen Fletcher.
Sure. But then I guess the mentality for me still feels that, I mean, I'm glad you brought up in that perspective, but it really does feel like basically Monk is kind of saying in a very crude way, we have a lot more quality in midfield than we do up front.
Oh, yeah. Heaps more.
Because it's like we have so many players in those positions, like the wing. You think of like Murphy, you think of Reach. You can have a rotating system. If we ever even had a situation where, I don't know, for whatever happened, maybe a lack of form or maybe like, a bit of exhaustion, that maybe, Harris was on the bench. But, even Forestieri to a certain degree, we've got, Luongo, we've got players who can cause a bit of damage in from midfield. Not like huge goal scorers.
No.
But you probably got more faith in them to create a positive change in the game than... then basically win all roads. But it's just depressing then because we've just got like I said, we're playing two of our most competent strikers, and I'm still a little bit concerned that what happens if one of them breaks down.
Yeah, well, the worst of the worst would Fletcher is really. I mean, losing Nuyu would be a pain. We'd notice it, but it wouldn't be the end of the world. But we are very, very reliant on Stephen Fletcher.
Yeah.
We ask a lot of him. And by and large this season he's doing all that and more, thankfully. But there will be games. I mean, he was driving me insane against Birmingham midweek because he just was not doing anything threatening to their goal at all. And there was one point early doors where Kieran Lee, there was a good cross in, a sort of low cross across the 6-yard box. Kieran Lee did a step over, which effectively gave Fletcher basically an open goal to aim for. And he looked completely surprised, and it bounced off his shin tamely to the penalty spot behind him. And just like that is so infuriating from what is supposed to be your striker. And there will be loads of those moments because he's not a poacher by any stretch, and he's not a deadly finisher. But with the quality in midfield, I think we can keep creating enough chances that, the fact he's picking up so many goals this season, I mean, he might well have 10 goals before Christmas, which is pretty staggering for a guy that does not score many ever. And that is because Kadeem Harris is providing so much quality. Barry Bannon's providing good set pieces, and Murphy, when he's playing, or Reach when they're playing, are chipping in as well. But a big part of it, Harris is just such a tremendous outlet, taking his fullback all the way to the line and then chipping those little balls into the box. It's just bread and butter for Fletcher. And he'll miss 3 sitters before he scores the 4th weird one. But it's almost like if we can keep making those 4 or 5 chances in a game for him, one of them will go in, even if it sort of bounces off his backside and goes in.
Yeah.
I do remember Brunt would put in crosses where it was literally like, just stand still and I'll bounce it off your face into the goal. Just aim your moon-shaped head vaguely towards the net, and I'll do the rest.
Just rotate your giant satellite dish head in this direction. Yeah.
This head's getting bigger and bigger, isn't it? Like I married an axe murderer. Oh,
Should we
right.
try and rifle through these player ratings? I feel we've
Let's,
talked a lot about the players already, so we can probably quickly
yeah,
get through this.
let's do some right.
Mr. Dawson.
Dawson. Not much to do for old
No,
Dawson.
I'm glad he kept his place after midweek. Interesting, you saw that there's no Westwood at all.
Yeah.
I mean, I know there's talk of an injury, but I wondered whether it was
It was a face-saving injury.
it was a what?
A face-saving injury.
Face-saving injury. Yeah. So we saw Jones, third, fourth keeper, Paul Jones, I think it is.
Yeah.
The bench.
I didn't. I was similar to you. I didn't know whether it was like you can't fire me because I quit kind of type injury. You can't drop me actually because I'm injured actually. So.
So I was going to go 6.5. I thought it was okay. Didn't have much to do. I'm glad he was there. He didn't do much wrong.
And he did do particularly well in that moment where Tom Lees did his bit of negative playmaking. He did
playmaking, yeah.
He did a nice job to to make sure that didn't amount to anything. Thankfully.
Congratulations to Mild Save Cammy for the game.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm happy for him. I'm glad. I'm glad it's going okay. It really would fucking break my heart if he comes in and just does an absolute massive clanger, to just have the opportunity. But he's been fair. He's been decent so far this season. He hasn't embarrassed himself.
No, we've conceded 2 goals, but that was par for the course before, and neither of them have been the fault of the goalkeeper, which was not par for course before. So I think. Yeah. So far, so good for Cam Dawson taking over. So, yeah, 6.5 sounds good to me. I think that works.
And number 2, he's a dreamer. It's Moses Odebajo.
He's in his basket. Moses Odebajo.
I don't know. He looks a bit out of sorts today. It wasn't his best game. He wasn't terrible. I just think I'm a bit damning of that goal. Really, I think he was
he should have done better from the goal, and that was the only chance they had in the game. So he's got to be harsh marked for it, hasn't it? I think that's fair enough.
Outside of that, I said he had a shot in the second that was, and I've written it here. So let's see if I can pronounce this correctly. Bad. I went with 4 A's, so hopefully
it was amazing. It was one of those that's like, how did you generate such a terrible angle?
We don't sign him for such a thing. And then I think he ran one out of play as well, at the byline as well.
He did. He tried to do a step over, but kicked it forward.
Yeah.
And couldn't catch up with it.
Yeah. Maybe went for a 5.5. Do you think that's harsh? Do you think it's more of a 6?
I'd go for a 6, but you can stick with 5. That's fine.
I'll join you on a 6.
Okay.
We won 3-1. I don't think I can really damn anybody in that.
Exactly. Yeah. To be honest, I both games, I think I've been quite pleased with how willing he is to get forward, and I think that's a big help to his winger. He's also quick and fit enough that when he comes forward, he can get back again. So both those things are good. You might say that's kind of like a bare minimum for a fullback, and maybe that would be a correct thing to say. But it wasn't something that was immediately apparent in his first couple of appearances for us. So I think quietly doing okay, but not brilliantly is where I'd put Odebajo at the moment. Then we got Big Dom.
Big Dom. I said I'm going to go for an 8. I'm going for an 8 for Iorfa. Iorfa was fantastic. He was so good. Just there's so many moments of just like, yep, I've had enough. I'm going to try and win it for us guys. Yeah. Just covered up. I'm not having this at all. I want another Iorfa, really. We talk about cloning players. I want one for the middle of the park. I really want one alongside Bannon, because I just think if you just gave him full reign to pay a bit that Kieran Lee thing, it could just be really, really good and really, you just have a hard man who's just got that touch of class about him and just wants to pick things up and make things happen in the middle of the park. I mean, worst comes to worst, we've got one at centre-back who's just making these big marauding runs.
Yes, exactly. He's just coming a little bit further, as long as somebody can cover in for him. But, yeah, it's just so good. At one point, the commentators said, a couple of times Charlton have tried playing a ball in behind Dominic Iorfa, and I don't know why they're bothering to do that, because nobody is going to beat him in a race.
Yeah, I know. So good.
So good. The most joyous thing, one of these days, he's going to be fully fully fed up. And at the end of one of his marauding charges forward, he's just going to beam one in as well. And we're all going to go nuts. It's going to happen.
Oh, God, yeah.
And maybe that'll be our little Christmas present. Maybe like sort of around Boxing Day, he's gonna run 60 yards forward and then just bang one home. Beautiful stuff. I love Big Dom at centre back.
I also want that to happen. Him just to run out and someone will just throw him a blue and white Santa hat. They'll just put it on. There you go.
And all of our Christmases will be made.
Maybe with a little beard that can just give a little kind of modest little stroke as well. Like, beautiful, lovely man.
Tom Lees?
I went for a 6.5.
Yeah.
I listened to the post-match interview with Monk and whoever the journalist was, whether it was Giddings, really enjoyed Tom Lees today. And I'm like, I don't know. He was okay.
I think this suits him. I think one of the reasons, again, weirdly, like, you know how Fletcher and Nuhiu, you'd think, you look at the two of them and you look at what they do well, and you think, okay, we'll play Fletcher and Nuhiu up top. And the expectation would be that Nuhiu, as the taller, less mobile guy, will naturally be the target man to Fletcher's striker. You feel that's the way the partnership worked. And that's the same with Tom Lees and Louvens were the same way, in that you'd naturally think, Louvens is the old stager, so what he'll do is provide the calm head, and Tom Lees will be the guy that kind of charges around and tries to sort of the more active of the two in the defence. But actually, when they worked together best, Louvens was the guy that went up for the headers, and Lees was the guy that swept up and was the calming influence alongside. And I think he's naturally dropping into that role with Iorfa. So Iorfa is all action, and if anything drops, Tom Lees is the guy that just sweeps it all up quietly behind him. Which is quite an enjoyable thing to watch. There was a couple of slips in that, but by and large, he did a really nice, tidy job of it. So I think maybe 6.5 is a bit harsh, considering, again, bar one freak incident, we should have had a clean sheet today.
Yeah.
Maybe if you're being very, very critical, you could say maybe Tom Lee should have done better in that bit of defending, but he did what you're supposed to do and made himself big. If he kept his feet on the ground, he may well have just bounced the ball out rather than towards our goal. But that is, I mean, really, we're picking very in very fine details that happen in a blink of an eye. So I'd probably go 7 for Lees, but I do understand the 6.5. Captain Fox Morgan.
I think I've been fairly harsh with him. I was going to say 6.5, but I think maybe it's more of a 7. A point I wanted to make from earlier was boos for Morgan Fox from the Charlton fans. As I said in my comments here, how about the 750k we gave you for him? You ungrateful no-mark Cockney swines.
They're just spurned lovers. They know what they lost.
I don't understand, though, because I think he was... I thought the whole thing with Morgan Fox was he wasn't particularly liked at Charlton. I think he was a player who came through who looked like he had some promise, and I think that was a bit of a thing, and then I think he kind of stalled and got a bit stale. Maybe a bit similar to some of the, defensive academy graduates that we've had in recent years, such as like Mark Beavers.
Yes.
And, Tommy Spur to a certain degree as well. So I was really surprised by that. I was like, really? Seriously? He used to play from you, but like, you guys got like a decent fee for him, and I don't know.
Yeah, but then Charlton fans, despite the fact I did manage to find the attendance, but I'm going to stick with the line. Just full disclosure, there were 18,000 people at the ground. But those 10 to 13 Charlton fans that were there, they think they're a Premier League club. When they say get back to where we belong, they mean the Premier League, because they were in the Premier League for that bit. I don't think the rest of the world thinks Charlton Athletic.
No, but this is plenty of fans can speak that about us, because there's people of different eras. The one that I remember thinking was really hilarious, which probably speaks to my age, was, do you remember when Stoke got up to the Premier League under Pulis?
Yes, I do, yeah.
And I think the BBC were like, oh, it's 30 years of hurts, or something like this. And I'm like,
yeah.
How do you... Stoke, a top-flight side?
They've not been sat there for 30 years licking their wounds.
Are we going to expand this and we're going to say Wigan, or since their inception, it's been an annoyance that they've not been a top flight side. Swansea, when they were playing Trading League in the 4th division, they thought we're better than this. We can be top Premier League dogs, baby. Top Division 1 cream. What is it? Yeah, so I get that. I get there's a degree of, we have that a certain degree.
But I think we've, by and large, this is not for this is not speaking for everybody, and I know there are plenty of exceptions to this rule. But I think we've learned over our time away from the glorious sunshine of the Premier League, we've had to eat a bit of humble pie and appreciate our place in the pyramid. So players like Whelan and Brunt, and Antonio to an extent, we've had to kind of grudgingly accept. Okay, they were too good for us, and we got some good money for them, and hopefully they go on and have lovely careers. I wonder if your average Charlton fan who thinks they deserve to be in the Premier League has reached that stage of thinking where it's like, okay, yeah, just because they left the club doesn't mean that they hate us or anything. It's just the job.
But it's also amplified by this media that they're a London club, so they get this jellied eels tongue bathing from the media. You know what I mean? It's just
So what did you give Captain Fox Morgan?
I've gone for a 7.
A 7. That's fair.
I think this just says 6.5, and I'm like, no, he's better than that, because I really appreciate. I saw your point about he's almost developing this weird kind of Kieran Lee arrival times in the box.
Do you think that's going to be his next form? Is a Kieran Lee-esque midfielder that just pops up late in the box? Oh, that would be so fun. Imagine if at the age of 26, he has a complete change in his career and becomes that sort of, I don't know, just a completely different guy.
I mean, he's not bad with the ball.
I don't think he quite knows what will happen when he swings his foot at the ball, but more often than not, it's all right.
He seems better for crossing, though. I think I think more often than not, his crosses are better than not. You know.
I agree. No, I can see it. I'm all for it. So we'll have a midfield of Dominic Iorfa and Morgan Fox for the next game.
There we go.
With Barry Bannon sitting in behind Fletcher for a little scot off. I agree with the 7. I'll go for that. So do you want to do the midfield too, or do you want to go?
Do you want to go?
Should we just do Harris?
Yeah, let's do Harris. I think 6.5. It wasn't really his day to day. Maybe that's a harsh. Yeah, maybe it's more of a 7.
I think I'm just bowled over by the fact we won a game of football, Luke. Sorry, I'm elated.
I know. And I think I did a lot of this narrative when we were looking like we're career into a 1-1, or we were going to negatively play make a winner for Charlton. I said I didn't really click for him, and we didn't get a vintage year from his step over wine. But he's still a man who, this is the thing. He's so dangerous.
Yeah.
And we can just give it to him. He's always an outlet.
Yeah.
So I said 6.5. I said it feels right, but a little harsh, because he tried so hard, and he had a great shot in the second half. And I don't know. This is the question. It's kind of you get the wingers. You get your wingers with your flair who do the square root of F all game, and you get your Chris Waddles who they don't really need to do much, and they're kind of lazy, but they're going to produce a moment of quality.
Yeah. So
we kind of have the reverse of that, other than just Harris just runs for days. He's just got so much industry.
I really, really love Kadeem Harris. I think he falls into...
What a find. What an absolute find.
We have talked about this before, but just having gone through those days of people like Giles Coke hiding behind players so you don't get the ball passed to you and stuff. And that's why I very rarely have a criticism for Barry Bannon, because even when he's been in his worst form, which is still pretty good for us, I've never, ever seen Bannon go hiding. He always wants the ball. He always wants to try and make things happen. And it's almost like if he makes a mistake, actually he wants the ball even more because he wants to make up for it. And that kind of like honesty and endeavour, it goes a long, long way to into my affections for a player. And Kadeem Harris is already there. And it's actually really rare to have a winger that has that kind of mentality because, as you say, you are on the periphery of things. It's fairly easy as a winger to kind of count yourself out of a match just with your lack of actions and lack of setting things up. But Harris just slogs away at it, and like today, he wasn't getting any joy out of that left back. Doty was just as quick as him, which is always hard for a winger like Harris to come up against. But he just kept slugging away at it. And we've seen other games where that's happened, where he's just by virtue of being that bit fitter for longer, he gets that chance to run at his guy when they're too tired or when they've been subbed off or whatever. So I think 6.5 probably looking at all of the kind of end product of things. But he did have 2 really good chances today. There was one that produced a save. He did his usual curling away, cut inside and curling away right-footed shot, which was fairly close. He doesn't hit the target with those very often. But yeah, I think probably looking at it cold hard fact-wise, I think 6.5 probably. Oh well, yeah. I think 6.5 is fine, but I just want to, just felt like saying that I really love Kadeem Harris. I think he's ace.
I mean, there's the general phrase which I can counter and say this isn't true. I don't know if you're aware of the phrase pizza even. Oh, yes. Even when it's bad, it's still good. And the similar thing about sex as well. But I think there's pretty bad pizza and there's pretty bad sex as well.
Yeah. But there's never that bad of a Kadeem Harris.
There isn't really. No, there really isn't.
He rises above pizza and sex in that regard.
And then I think I want to say the same about Barry Bannon if we move across the park and we'll pick him next.
Wee Baz.
Who a similar deal. Like you said, even when you did say the same, right? You said when he's bad, he's still pretty good. And today I want to give him an 8. Because it was so beautiful, that cross, and there was just so many important passes and plays. I think we always know this. We always try and I know you did the tweet about the episode where we did the best player, and and podcast listener and fan of the podcast, Drew Gentry, who, shout out to Drew, he's always excellent, very nice gentleman, basically said, the best player putting together, is it Bannon? Basically, yes. We're done here. And I think we as Wednesday nights, because we're so close to it, we don't fully sometimes appreciate Bannon, because I think sometimes I don't know, I wonder if it's a similar thing with Forestieri. Maybe I'm just comparing him to that pomp when he came. And I feel there's been, I know you're saying about the Bannon that always wants the ball, but I think there's also been the Bannon that's kind of retired on the pitch backwards. The Bannon who
normally kind of makes the ball though, and space.
I know, but sometimes when it's not worked, it's kind of been that midfield quarterback. It's been, I'm going to lay deep and just ping a few Hollywood balls out. I think when it doesn't work. But the thing I remember about that first year, there's a few games where Bannon was just getting forward and just causing so much damage and just so many beautiful touches. So I think that's sometimes the thing with Bannon is I kind of miss, for the games where it doesn't kind of work, where his big killer passes don't come off. I sometimes wish and sometimes pine for that kind of drive from midfield that he can have. He has had it before. I think he would kind of say, I think there's been comments previously that he kind of sees his role being a bit back on the pitch.
Yeah.
But I would be, if I was the Wednesday manager and if I had some great charm and charisma to pull this off, some kind of, and probably a better knowledge about football and all that stuff, and maybe my coaching badges, the ones to really just shove in Alan Irvin's face. I would put arm around Bannon and say, you are that player. You are that player that can get forward. He can do a bit of everything, really.
I think in the 3, that is what he's being encouraged to do. I think in a 2 like today, he's got to do a lot more work, but he's good at that too most of the time. Like his tackles, his slide tackles are successful more often than not. But today, as you say, a lot was clicking, and his set pieces were good, his crosses were good, and his general play was really fantastic. So I think
really great. I think it's
fair for Bannon.
I think it's up there, one of the better performances he's had this season. But that's not saying that kind of sounds in a damning way, but it isn't. I'm just saying it's just the best of the best.
Yeah.
One of the best of the best. I mean, sometimes actually we've had a few games where he's had a bit more output in terms of assists and goals. But he had a really good shot. I felt that was a beautiful shot he had in the second, which was touch wide. Such an exquisite cross for Fletcher. And, he always just keeps things ticking over and moving the ball around. Yeah, Bannon, just an absolute revelation.
Yeah, absolutely. So to go back to the Fletcher and Bannon name guessing game, the guy who was described as loves his hair, loves himself, Sam Hutchinson.
Which I think we all love kind of Sam Hutchinson a little bit, even when he's kind of a bit below par. And it's been a weird season for Hutch so far. I'd give him a 6.5 today. I think he was a 6 in the first and 7 in the second that we saw of him. It's kind of weird though. It's just he's got another yellow. He's got another yellow. He's got 9 yellows.
I know.
We're gonna see him. I'm gonna hear him on the commentary again sometime soon.
Yes, it's gonna happen. I can't remember much that Hutch did, to be honest. But sometimes that is the nature of that position just in front of the defence. If you're doing your job well, actually you're not doing big stuff. You're not making tackles because what you're doing is intercepting before it gets to the stage where it needs to be tackles. So, and he didn't, he's not giving the ball away. He just, he didn't seem to do too much going forward. He didn't do too much going backwards, but kind of altogether hung pretty nicely. I think 6.5 is fair enough. The final member of that starting midfield was Fernando Forestieri.
FF, or should I say FFS? Especially for that costly miss.
Yeah.
Good assist for the disallowed goal. I'm going to go for a 6. I don't think that's damning. I think he was all right.
And you've got to think he tweaked his knee 17 odd as well, so he sort of fought on with that injury as well for however long.
But I don't know. I think that's just the natural thing. We've been here before with Forestieri. I'm not going to revisit that conversation we had at the beginning of the podcast.
No, we've done Forestieri, haven't we? This episode, we've done it.
We've done Forestieri. I think the thing is, the thing I'm disappointed, the thing I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that there's another gear with Forestieri, but I'm losing faith that there is at this stage.
Yeah. Well, I remember us being excited at the start of the season at the prospect of him playing for a contract.
Yeah.
If it's him playing up for a contract, then
it's not happening. It's not materialised. And I'm sure the thing is, someone will give him a contract. If it's not us.
No, but he won't be getting a contract like he's on at this point in time.
Oh, Lord, no. No. Yeah. Anyway.
I think 6 is fair enough, really. Because if you take away the disallowed goal, didn't really do anything other than miss a sitter. Ati Nuyu.
I started writing this. I think I initially gave him a 6.5 upgrade to a 7 because of the goal.
Right, yeah.
Another disallowed one as well. The comments I first wrote was, he did something today. He sure did. I can't tell you what it is.
See, this is the thing. He got an 8.1 from Who Scored. He was our second player, but he won 8 aerials, which is, I do think that shows the fact he's taking that sort of strain from Fletcher in terms of the winning the ball from the long kickouts. Because Fletcher only won 3 aerial balls. So I do think that sort of shows that the Nuyu was kind of doing at least that bit of things. That was more than anybody else on the pitch, the amount of aerials he won.
I've seen bad Nuyu performances, and this wasn't one at all.
No.
I've seen better Nuyu performances.
He wasn't running things. He wasn't doing, as we talked about last week on the Opta Rich stats. He didn't Ati Nuyu hardly at all. I think he only Ati Nuyu once in the whole game, and he was on the pitch for 90 minutes. I mean, it was a really low, in terms of Ati Nuyu per minutes on the pitch, pretty low incidence today. So yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I think he probably did a lot of stuff that went unnoticed that meant that Fletcher could probably focus on being a bit more of a striker. But yeah, I think that's 7.5, something like that would be my score for him. Nice, really nice for him to get that goal at the end, and he took it so well. He did take his disallowed goal brilliantly well. That was
the thing. This is the funny thing, was like outside of that performance, he's had two moments of just absolute real quality.
Yeah.
One of which, one which was disallowed, which probably was offside. But just felt such a shame for the quality of everything, the way it went. And then this last goal was just lovely. So good.
Yeah.
So, and that's the funny thing, is I've probably given Fletcher similar or better scores for similar things, right? I think sometimes he's had that final killer touch or goal.
Yeah.
And sometimes it hasn't quite been there for him.
Yeah.
So maybe 7's hard. I feel like 7 is right for me, but I can see it maybe a bit harsh. I don't know.
Yeah, well, you go 7. I'll go 7.5. It's cool. It's fine.
Right. Okay.
I just know who Atty would be friends with. Okay. Stephen Fletcher, Big Fletch.
I went for a 7.5. Just two absolute beautiful goals. Just really classy.
Yeah. I'm going to give him an 8 because he got in the keeper's face. I love that. Bit of aggro. Eat it, you mother.
Bit of needle.
I was reminded when, again, sorry, not to harp on about that blooming video even longer, but when they were going through fake Scottish people in our squad, we are rather blessed with fake Scottish people. Because Fletcher was born in Shrewsbury.
Really?
Yes, yeah.
But he spent a lot of time growing up north of the border. He moved up at the
age of 9 to Scotland, and he did most of his schooling and all of his youth football in Scotland. But yeah, he's sort of in some ways fake Scottish as well, as Liam Palmer and and Jordan Rhodes.
Jordan Rhodes, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry. He did what he's there to do, didn't he? What more can you say?
Yeah.
Should we cover the subs then? Jacob Murphy.
Yep, let's do that. Murphy, I went for a 7. Won the pen and a good few free kicks. The Murphy berries seem to be in season, and long may it continue.
Beautiful, lovely. I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. Adam Reach.
Peach of across for the new U header. I liked his bite in industry. A good sub, if not quite a starter at the moment.
I know. It was a nice little 10-minute cameo, particularly because he'd been. I think he comes in for a lot of criticism that he doesn't deserve. Adam Reach, mostly due to the elevated price tag that seems to go up every time I hear it. £21 million he cost. But I thought midweek he was pretty desperately poor, and obviously gave the ball away at the start of the move that led to the goal. So it was nice to see him come back. Good 10-minute cameo, as you say, put himself around and sort of pinch the ball off the opposition a couple of times, and then what a great sumptuous cross for Atty New to score from. Luongo was. Oh, so actually we've done them out of turn. Sorry, but I don't remember Luongo doing very much, to be honest. They were on the pitch for this amount of time.
And maybe this was just because I love Luongo. I said he can't miss out on a 7 either, and in Lukra Winfrey fashion, he gets a generous 7 he finds under his seat.
You get a 7. You get a 7. Everybody gets a 7.
It's a 7.
Yeah.
So maybe everyone gets the greatest 7 if Luongo gets a 7. I don't know.
Maybe,
maybe just do away with all the entire work I put in on this player rating so far.
Did you call yourself Lukra Winfrey?
I did. Beautiful. I did indeed.
Oh, that's so good.
We are, similar things. I am starting a media empire as well. And there we go. And that's where the comparisons end.
I think we've sort of done that to death, haven't we now, Luke?
Yeah, the only thing I really want to give as a little kind of bonus extra is I really want to kind of give some of my discarded thoughts from when I thought we were careering to a 1-1 or a 2-1 reverse.
Okay, your disastrous, your missives from
my
disaster.
rider was basically, it's so long without a win, such a dry spell. We need to clockwork Orange hours of Wednesday wins into them so they can have victory scorched into their spank banks. And actually, here's another concept which I come up with, which I think could still be used. I think is not something that we should completely discard just yet. So I'm wondering if basically with the advent of technology and the way that things are progressing, Rich, with technology as a whole, this brave new future we're going into, maybe we could have some VR simulations for our strikers, have them put into a series of repeatedly easy finishing situations, and then that could build their confidence.
Yeah.
And this could also simulate the game time that our bench strikers need as well.
That'd be good. Maybe with Fletcher, we could get rid of like 3 or 4 of the misses so that when he plays, he's primed to score the next one, that kind of rule of averages.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
No, I agree with you.
If he gets 3 misses in a row, pull him out of the simulation. Stephen, you're ready for the match.
A bit like, how pitchers and relief pitchers and stuff in Major League Baseball have the bullpen.
Yes.
Maybe we could just watch him with a little headset on. Just to the side. Just be like, he's ready. He's ready. Bring him on.
Ready. Get him on. He's primed.
Unleash the big man. He likes a header.
Lovely stuff. Any more missives from the dark beyond?
I just said the commentary is horrendously poor and underwhelming. It has a looser handle on the game than Joey Pelopessi. And that's about it. The other thing I'd commentate was just I keep looking a lot at Gary Monk, and I envy his hair because I'm a man who's balding. Shout out to my mum's male side of the family.
Oh, yeah. He's got a good head of hair on him.
Yeah.
It was really good. I mean, obviously you expect them to be chuffed, but they absolutely loved every bit of that win as much as we did. That was really nice. The celebration on the of Atti's goal on the on the bench was just was a joy to behold. We've got Brentford up next, so they're one of the teams between us and the playoffs, so that's going to be a bit of a tricky task.
Brentford, who today put 7 past Luton.
Yeah. They've been a bit of a bogey club for us at times, haven't they? They're one of those that we just keep bumping up against as we wander through the various divisions.
It's felt a long time since I think it was a game down at Brentford that Zhao just rolled Jack O'Connell. Future Piglet, and then just sealed it to really kind of feel like we kind of announced that we really had this promising young striker on our hands who then earns a call up to the Portugal national team. But that's a real callback to some real prime days under Carvajal.
Yeah, those are some joyous times. It's hard to know that today's result was a huge relief. Obviously, it was nice to get the monkey off our back, having not won in so long. But the sort of the asterisk next to that one is just how depleted Charlton were. How few of their first teamers they had to call on, maybe. So I don't know. We'll see. I think it would be interesting to balance the two against each other once we've played Brentford. Two of the less glamorous London-ish clubs back to back.
Following our West Midlands double header that we had.
Yes, exactly. There was another lovely little bit of commentary that Ostuma, their sort of attacking midfielder that gave away the goal, they said he's well travelled. He's played in Turkey, Preston, Bolton, and don't forget Walsall. Yeah, who could forget Walsall? He's basically he's dotted around some pretty middling clubs in the UK, but he came from Turkey, so he's well travelled. Anyway, right. I'm going to say cheerio and wish you well for the week ahead, Luke.
You too. Have a good one, Rich.
Cheerio.
See. Bye.